FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio.
One of the things that we highlight frequently on this show and we discuss so much is how we've lost so much ground in the art and entertainment sphere, in culture, everything political, everything that you see on Fox, on CNN, on MSNBC, CBS, ABC, NBC, all of this, all of it, everything that's on the Hill, everything that's on the Drudge Report, all of this is downstream from what happens in pop culture, from what happens in art and entertainment. And we so often forget that, you know, when you're out there fighting to push conservatism and limited government and faith in culture, that the battle, you're focusing on the symptom. You're not going to where the battle actually lies. And so I always love talking to people who are, you know, they're Christian conservatives and they work in art and entertainment and they're out there in the music industry and in film, because that's the front line. And they're some of the bravest individuals I've ever met because they put all of their chips out there. And one of them is joining me on the phone, and he really doesn't need an introduction. Dez Dickerson, has a really fabulous career that spanned 4 decades in the music industry. He spent 5 years as the original guitarist with Prince and the Revolution. He also started Absolute Records, which is a Christian music label. And Dez joins us on the phone right now. Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining me.
Hi, Dana. Thanks so much for having me.
It's good to talk with you. And I'm a huge fan. As soon as people found out that you were going to be on the show, of course, there was a lot of emails with caps lock and a lot of people talking about it on Twitter. They were very excited. You've been in art and entertainment for so long, and you're public as a Christian conservative. You make no apologies about what you believe, about where you stand, and it's difficult to do that in a climate where people want to be instantly prejudiced against someone because of their ideology. As you found, you know, being so successful in what you've done, how did you deal with that in your musical career? How did you reconcile what you believed and being in the secular music industry and being as successful as you are? How did you do it, basically?
Well, first off, I mean, fundamentally, I believe that the real key to being, you know, a believer and being a passionate supporter of truth in our culture is recognizing that I don't have to apologize for who I am and what I believe first and foremost, and that there's really an issue of establishing credibility, and through credibility, establishing influence that's far more important to me than anything having to do with, you know, defending my faith or in some way, you know, just simply establishing a secondary Christian culture as opposed to being actively engaged in the culture at large.
That's a great point that you make, because I think sometimes people think that they sort of have to separate themselves because of what they believe. You don't have to. Just be good at what you do and promote that, and like you said, you don't have to be apologetic about it either. And it's worked well. It's worked well for you.
Well, and the people respect it if you just are
right.
Very straightforward in terms of, look, this is who I am, this is what I'm about.
Right. Exactly. You have a book out, My Time with Prince. And, of course, you can read everything about Dez at DezDickerson.com. I have to ask you this because, of course, you know, I watched Chappelle's show. And, you know, I was talking with my husband. He's in music. And he was like, and my producer, Kevin, as well. And I have to ask you, I'm sure you're aware of the Charlie Murphy skit where they talked about how they played basketball with the band. And this was about the time you would have been there and then ate pancakes after. I have to ask you if that's true.
I mean, here's the reality of it. Eddie used to hang out with us. I've never even met Charlie, but Eddie used to hang out with us quite frequently. That's factual. We had a habit of playing basketball, for that matter, flag football, in like full-on rock and roll regalia, high heels and the whole bit.
Awesome.
So that part of it's accurate. As far as playing basketball and then offering people pancakes afterward, no, that's artistic license right there.
I had to ask that. That was when I'm like, Dez was there. He would have seen. He can validate whether Charlie Murphy's story was accurate or not. Your book, when you discuss how you came up in music and how you ended up meeting Prince and you know, forming the band and all of that. Did you? I mean, and you have an excerpt of your book online where you went to this audition. You read something and you saw an ad. You know, Warner Brothers artist seeks guitarist, keyboardist, and you'd heard about this guy named Prince, and you were going to go on an audition. When you all got together and when you were crafting songs and you were so instrumental, you have a solo, you were in Purple Rain too as well. When you got together and you did this, I mean, did you realize at the time that this is it? Because you really did change. You changed music. You changed music. I think you further popularized rock and roll. Did you realize that that's something that you were doing at the time as you all were coming together?
You really never gain perspective until there's some distance, historically between you and the events. I mean, in the beginning, the thing that was obvious to me was that we had an opportunity to be to separate ourselves from the rest of the music and the musicians that came out of our hometown, out of the Twin Cities.
Right.
And to do something at least a cut above in terms of just what we did. But as it went along and as we had these different experiences that sort of captured our attention and showed, whoa, something's happening here that's bigger than what we expected. I mean, I'd love to say that I was this genius prognosticator and, at age 22 or 23 or whatever, I knew the whole thing was going to happen. Now, hoped it would happen, believed it was possible, but it's funny. I was having a conversation with a couple of the guys from the original band a few months ago, and I made the comment that, it's funny, the older we get, the bigger we were. It's this weird thing that it takes on a life of its own the more time goes on.
That's true. And as the popularity grew and, you went on tour and, fans absolutely loved you, you ended up walking away from the band. You quit the band. And I wanted to know if that had to do with where you were coming from spiritually. Like what was it that triggered you to walk away from the band?
There was definitely a greater conflict, a growing conflict within me with respect to sort of reconciling the influence that we were having and what I was about personally. Although, there were several years where I really felt that I was there for a purpose, that God put me there flatly. And, there came a point to where I realized my time in the band was up. And it's not so much that I came to sort of this crisis of faith, and it was like I can't be a believer and be in this band. It's time. My assignment is changing, and it's time for me to take this and go somewhere else. And it had not been for the fact that I was in the band for those 5 years, a lot of the influence that I've been able to sort of enjoy within the entertainment community wouldn't exist. I mean, part of my ability to be able to go into situations and be who I am is that there's a certain level of respect that people automatically pay within the industry as a result of the fact that, well, this guy's legit, and
right.
I can't just marginalize him. I can't, marginalize him and characterize him as some kooky, fringe Christian guy.
Right. And that's so often what happens. That took a lot for you to do that, for you to realize that this isn't where I need to be anymore. My time here's finished and I need to move on because, people in that situation, I mean, here you're with, it's a world-renowned band and it's difficult. It would be difficult for anybody to walk away from it. And that always struck me about you and this story, and that you did. And afterwards, I mean, you went on tour, you founded Absolute Records, and then of course in 2005 you had Rock of Ages, where classic hymns meets classic rock, which I thought was awesome because that's not done enough with Christian music. That's not done enough where you rock out a hymn. That's that's great that you did that. That was awesome.
Well, it was one of those things that just it made sense. I was approached about doing a project, and it made sense. And really, we've even taken it further since then. In that, I've really taken a lot of time to sort of unpack the shift generationally and look at how Gen Y processes, sort of spiritual versus cultural things. And more and more, we've taken our company in a direction where we're just dealing with truth and light and trying to eliminate a lot of this sort of, to use a term, Christianese cultural baggage, and just try to be even more in your face, so to speak, but do so in such a way that it's difficult for people to refute our credibility.
Right. And that's what's so important, because that's the thing about all of this. And that's, that's something that we talk about. And I know, you know my husband and you guys have discussed it as well. the cultural impact of all of this. I mean, that's where the battle really, really is. And this is something that you've been working in a long time. And I hear so often from people who are in music or they're in film, and they're like, look, I'm a conservative, but I'm scared to say anything. I'm, be vocal because I'm afraid I'll be sidelined. And I want to put my themes and explain truth in the work that I do. And people find that it's such a hurdle. What would you say to any conservative that's in arts and entertainment, whatever discipline it is, and they're trying to be true to themselves and also present their truth through their medium? What advice would you give any of them?
I think first and foremost, you have to be willing and ready to risk. I think that, the fear of man, the fear of what people will think, or the fear of what they'll withhold from me is that the primary thing that prevents us from establishing a voice and gaining influence in the culture. I think first and foremost, too, you need to recognize that you need to leave sort of the comfort of the sort of nice, warm cultural blanket that sort of church culture can provide you.
Right.
And everybody loves to go where they're celebrated and not where they're tolerated. But at the same time, you have to be willing to kind of be, the hood ornament. You've got to be willing to be the one that catches the bugs and create a backdraft that people can follow you into. So that's what I would say. Just be true to who you are, what you believe. Recognize that ideas have consequences. The ideas that you represent are the ideas that can save America, literally. So go for it.
Right. Well, and you've definitely done that for a lot of people. Dez Dickerson, we'd love to have you back. We'd love to talk with you regularly because I know that you have opinions on the caucuses and New Hampshire and everything else. So we'd love to have you back if you're willing.
I would love to do that. I'd love to be back. I've enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk to you again soon. Dez Dickerson, his book, My Time with Prince, DezDickerson.com, AbsoluteRecords.com. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. It's an honor. Thanks so much, Dez.